Now, as the world battles the pandemic, which has now claimed over 200,000 lives, health workers continue to brave the odds to offer patients lifeline. Now, more than 10,000 of them have, however, succumbed to the disease worldwide. And a build up to the broadcast of our latest documentary, Inside a Treatment Center, Komla Adom puts the spotlight on life on the front lines, which features two doctors at the University of Ghana Medical Center who are giving it all up just to offer medical care to patients with coronavirus at the facility.
Many times, doctors, nurses, and other health workers feel invulnerable, but it is hard for them now to see their colleagues who have caught the coronavirus die in other jurisdictions. But it is a commitment to serve humanity that is keeping hope alive, and it shows how brave these people are for showing up every day and doing their work.
My medical director in particular cares about the people, and while his jurisdiction is the doctor, so I can speak only as a doctor, and they make sure that you take care of yourself. I have one colleague who, as we say in Chinga, it's not many just to Dr. Susan Siabi, but she makes sure that I do the right thing. Sometimes I forget I'm going to hug someone and said, I'm a social distancing or this, or I'm a, you looked at it. We look out for each other. Someone doesn't see you for a couple of days, you get a call to make sure that everything is okay.
I am Komla Adom, and I have come to the University of Ghana Medical Center, where I have been granted exclusive access to visit the treatment facility for persons with COVID-19. I meet Dr. Emmanuel Amoah and Dr. Amma Edwin, who are directly offering care to some of the patients in this facility. Before they go into the treatment facility, they need to be appropriately gowned. In fact, personal protective equipment, what we famously call PPEs, are precious now, probably counted like narcotics. But it is for good reason. We're about to find out how much.
We are going to wear our full PPE. The reason is simple. When we go in there and then anybody needs any care, because we are in full PPE, we can offer the level of care, the needed care for every patient. If you are not fully donned, then when you go in, there may be some procedures you may not be able to do because we are not in the appropriate personal protective equipment.
But Dr. Amoah and Dr. Edwin do not don their PPEs unguided.
We have supervisors here whose sole responsibility is to make sure that healthcare workers are donned properly before they go to offer service. So they will read you the steps and you dress appropriately before they can tell you that now you are okay to go. So now we are going to turn you today also to frontline health workers, possibly give you the full PPE for you to appreciate what healthcare workers go through when they need to offer care for COVID-19 patients.
You know me, I told you that I'm up for this, so no problem at all. I'm ready to also, don the PPEs. It's going to be a revealing, experience for me as well. What you are seeing now is a session where the doctors are donning their full PPEs, of course being supervised by people who are designated to supervise the donning of the PPEs. As you can see, it's actually not a child's play here. I did not check the timer, but this careful and thorough process lasted more than 30 minutes for us all. I have to tell you that it's not an easy process. My camera technician, Sami Asante, is here with me. Sami, are you sure you can breathe?
I'm managing.
And I'm going to go in the treatment area with Sami Asante, also with Dr. Emmanuel Amoah and Dr. Amma Edwin. Come with us. These doctors and nurses do not just walk in and out of a treatment facility.
You have to plan the care. What exactly are we going to do in there? So that when you go in with, let's say, a doctor and a nurse, you'll finish all that has to be done for the patients before you come out. Because we want as minimum exposure as possible.
Dr. Amma Edwin has taken the lead. She's interacting with some of the patients and probably seeking their consent to have us come by.
We have some of our patients here who are willing to talk to you.
These two patients are doing well.
How are you doing?
I'm doing better. Yeah, sure, everything is going well and we are under the treatment and we are getting better.
I actually wasn't breathing properly, so I had to come in so that they can monitor me properly with oxygen and so on, support.
Akai and Polo, as I choose to call them, say the health workers, including Dr. Amoa and Edwin, have been truly helpful.
As I'm here for past 1 week now. I was suffering a breathlessness, but because of the doctor's team over here and the staff management, I'm getting better over here.
Oh, doing well. The doctors have been very supportive, and the jacks have been working, so we're fine.
It's been several hours of working around the clock and sometimes on shift basis to offer care to those still here after some 18 others were treated and discharged. The expectation is that those who are here with mild to no symptoms will recover soon enough to be discharged.
We sort of try to give them the needed psychological support counseling through Dr. Edwin, and the little that we can also do. And then when we discharge them, we plan their discharge carefully so that we take them home into the community without them being noticed that they are coming out from the hospital. We are trying to help people to also appreciate that it's not the fault of anybody to be infected with COVID-19, including healthcare workers. So we need to be confident about what we are doing and also to try to support those who are infected to recover fully and come back to enjoy their lives they are already enjoying.
While these health workers give off their best, they also give up their invulnerability. More than 10,000 of them have been infected by the disease globally. In Ghana, some doctors and nurses have been compromised too.
Well, make sure you catch the full documentary inside the treatment center tonight on Joy News, which is now free to air at 8:30 p.m. tonight. Well, talking about all the things that you need to stay glued to, the number of things that you need to monitor, because with mounting pressure on the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research and the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research as a result of aggressive testing of suspected coronavirus samples, authorities in the Bono East region are also calling for the consideration of the Kintampo Health Research Center as a testing center. Now, Anasa Betas more in the next report.
Ghana has currently completed over 100,000 COVID-19 tests. All these tests were conducted at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research and the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research in Tropical Medicine. With the Ghana Health Service currently embarking on an aggressive contact tracing to identify infected persons, pressure is mounting on the two testing centers in the country. Authorities in the Bono East region are therefore calling on government to consider the Kintampo Health Research Center as one of the testing points across the country. Established in the year 1994, the center is one of 3 field research centers of the Health Research Unit of the Ghana Health Service. Bono East Regional Health Director Dr. Fred Adumakomboatin tells Joy News that the center has the capacity and when revamped will be able to conduct COVID-19 tests.
We are really advocating, looking at the nature of this region and how we are placed strategically. We think that Kintampo Health Research Center should be a testing site, because if we are going to test, embark on a lot of enhanced testing, people come in, we are going to take loads of samples, then it's necessary. And this place is a priority area. They have the expertise. They have the human capacity. Mind you, it's a research center, and they have the lab capacity. So it's just for us to get 1-2 equipment and to boost it up. I think this place should be a priority in getting testing.
For the Municipal Chief Executive for Kintampo North, Mr. Michael Sarkodie Bafo, the exclusion of the center by health authorities is an oversight and needs to be corrected.
The research center has capacity to test, but apparently it was lost at a point in time when the health minister was announcing or mentioning possible testing areas. It was apparently missing, and so I'm using this to appeal to the health authorities to look at Kintampo Health Center. You know, when it comes to health research, Kintampo Health Center is among the top, and I'm sure the health authorities are aware of this. It may be an omission, on the basis of which I'm calling on management of the health system to consider Kintampo Health Research Center.
On his part, Bono East Regional Minister and Member of Parliament for Atebubu-Amantin constituency, Mr. Kofi Amwakohene, believes that the center, when considered, would go a long way to help in the fight against the pandemic.
It's not as if that if nothing is being done, just instruction, they can start the thing. They will still need a little input, you understand? So we are discussing that with the national, and I believe very soon they will come up with what to be done. But we have submitted to the national for consideration. And indeed, in my little thinking, I think it's going to help the region and Ghana as a whole because of the load and the numbers that we want to deal with.
Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Kintampo.
I will now take you to the Upper West region, where the regional minister, Dr. Hafiz Bin Sali, says the treatment of the cerebral spinal meningitis, CSM, is free, urging people who have symptoms to seek early treatment at various health facilities in the region. CSM has claimed so far the lives of some 40 persons just in the Upper West region, with some 258 confirmed cases so far. Dr. Bin Sali said the majority of the people who lost their lives was as a result of a new strain called the Stereotype X, they could have reversed the trend if they had sought treatment very early.
Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz Bin Sali since last week has been meeting members of the various public health epidemic committees in the region to address himself with the issue of the cerebrospinal meningitis CSM and the COVID-19 pandemic. The Jirba municipality is one of the hardest areas hit by the CSM in the region, with a recorded death of 7 persons.
We had our first CSM case in January 9, 2020, and since then we have had 50 suspected cases. 16 were positive cases, and out of which 7 deaths.
On COVID-19, the municipality is yet to record a case, as they have employed several strategies to ensure that suspicious characters who enter the municipality are reported to the appropriate authorities.
Anybody coming in, everybody is too keen to identify cases, and so any stranger coming, we are notified because they have our hotlines. There are rumors everywhere that we do follow up to ensure that what they are saying is either true or not true, but just to allay the anxiety of people.
Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz Bin Sali described the death of the 40 persons in the region through CSM as worrying and urged the people to seek early treatment, as treatment for the disease is free.
And the good news is that for the treatment of CSM, it is completely free. The medicine that is used for its management, they were donated to us free of charge. So we expect that when they are being administered, it should be free of charge.
The regional minister then moved to the Lora municipality, where he called on the paramount chief of the Lora traditional area, Napowole Kabo III. Napowole Kabo III, who initially was not comfortable with the number of deaths recorded on CSM in the region, was however hopeful that strategies put in place by the health authorities will yield the desired results.
In your monitoring, you should start educating us early before the temperatures begin to rise. We appreciate the fact that the virus is mutating and therefore creating problems about the medicine that we use to treat it. But if we go back to history, you will see that the chiefs played very key roles in getting the people to understand this. For a long time, we have thought that CSM has been kicked out of this place. But alas, it is not the case. But we are happy that the health people are putting in appropriate structures, and we as traditional authorities are there. And personally, I would like to cooperate with I will cooperate with my district health directorate to see that our people are educated to report the cases early enough so that it can be treated.
The minister climaxed his day at the Lora municipality with a meeting with members of the Lora Municipal Public Health Epidemic Committee. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Jiroba.
And that's it. Latest news headlines we have here. But we have more news. We now have the newspapers back in their batches. And I tell you, you'll see them. Many of them this morning. We'll take a review of them. Myself, Kuji Yankson, and Mama Vio Sombwaji right here. Stay with us. Well, we have to do the newspapers. And Mama, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Ade.
Nice.
What they happen?
Well.
I'm told that you want to do some innovation this morning. Oh, you're still affair.
No. Okay, right. This is it. I mean, you know, the South African president struggled to put his mask on. Did you see that video?
I've not cited it. When you did his last address, saying that he wanted to open up some places?
Yes.
Okay. To say, put it in perspective, Cyril Ramaphosa is a very rich man, even though he's also a president. So forgive him for some of the things. But it doesn't also absolve him of blame, you know. I think as a leader, he should have been practicing right. That's where I have to give it up.
we're not doing the blame thing. I mean,
it's not blaming, but he doesn't know how to wear the mask. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
I think
demonstrating how to wear a mask.
It's difficult sometimes. So, you want me to help you out? Let's finish with the newspapers. Hopefully, I can get a minute to do that. But you know, you have to sanitize right before you put the mask on.
Yeah.
And there are places that you don't have to touch. A lot of us make that mistake. I've been learning a few tricks, so maybe I can...
Hey, after all these weeks, you are now learning.
Yeah, we're still learning. There's still a lot.
Yeah, I know we have to learn every day, but am I safe? We'll go have production meetings after the show and all that.
Listen, we all can't take like 100%, like, you know, there's so many things that
but you know, over the weekend, I had a demonstrative video with Salifu Combat. You know, he's a health professional. He's the head of primary health pharmacy at the Boku Presbyterian Hospital, and he showed me some few tricks.
So that's on video?
Yeah, that was on video. That was demonstration that Cyril Ramaphosa couldn't do, but Salifu Combat of Boku did it.
All right.
You know,
let's do the newspapers.
For shaggy reasons.
I'll do the Daily Graphic and the Chronicle newspaper. Let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Here we go. What's on the front page? The banner headline, ban on public gathering extended. Also, 88 hospitals, 3 infectious disease centers to be built. All came out yesterday as the president addressed the nation. NMC calls for financial support for media. 6 lockdown lawbreakers test positive for COVID-19. Meeting was normal work, according to the EC, but NDC thinks otherwise. Well, there's some clarity in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Dr. Eric Bosman, deputy chair of the EC, is giving some details. When we run through the headlines, we will talk about what he's been sharing with the Daily Graphic. Unipass goes nationwide tomorrow. That's also another headline. This is how the front page of the paper looks like today. Let's check out what's in the center spread of the graphic, though. Nooks commends government for bold decision on education and COVID-19. Pharmaceutical companies to produce 70% of country's drug needs. Fast-track processes for disbursement of 600 million Ghana cedis stimulus package. Also, that story in the center spread of the paper. And on the back page, VRA, Tahuatiko fumigate 4 Shama communities, and police impound 200 motorbikes in Accra. Let's move on to the Chronicle newspaper. Front page of the Chronicle. Tension in shipping industry over minister's waiver directive. Also use calico or cotton-made nose mask. That's according to the Food and Drugs Authority. NPP Youth Honor Chief of Staff. And there's a quotation here. If you see the front page of the Chronicle, it says, Sir John, Samira writes on COVID-19, NLA formally takes over online lottery. There you go with how the Chronicle front page looks like today, Monday 27th. Roland?
Well, we have to go straight away to the Ghanaian Times, and the Ghanaian Times has on the front page, okay, COVID-19 use continuous assessment to grade BEC, WASSCE students. That will be SHS, etc. Okay, so we have the CRI, that's Child Rights International, led by Bright Appiah, encouraging the WAEC to use the assessment of schools, as has been sent by schools to WAEC, to grade the students as to who gets A1, A2. I don't know how they grade them these days. So BEC, WASSCE students, suggest that to government. I think that will be pretty difficult. I don't know. Everybody will be getting 111. I don't know. Because the assessments look very good when they are sent to WAEC. So we'll see how that goes. But the main story on the front page of the Ghanaian Times: to prevent spread of coronavirus, President extends public gathering ban for another 2 weeks. That was well appreciated, because there were a lot of things flying. I don't know whether Mamavi received one of them. That the president was going to lift the ban on restrictions, people can go to church, etc. Then quickly I got somebody asking, so the way we shout to Lord Jesus, Lord Jesus, then somebody will be spitting on your face. Lord Jesus. Then at the mosques too, when they're calling on Muhammad, they'll also be spitting on your face. And that's essentially the reasons why we don't want public gatherings to be encouraged at this moment in time. Yeah. But in the meantime, we told you about the electoral commission. Mamavi will be having an interaction with a member of parliament for Ningo Pram and some judges on the line, and it's on the back of, first he had a concern. There was an injunction that he prayed the court to grant. It was granted for that trainers workshop not to be convened at the City Escape Hotel in his constituency. And it looked like somehow it was conducted in another branch, which was located at airports of City Escape Hotel. The officials of the Electoral Commission were in there, and then, as we reported, we had some members of the NDC, particularly I saw Sam George, and also John Dumelo was in there, a number of officials. They all thronged the frontages, and Mamavi, Sam George is on the line.
Well, good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mamavi. I hope you're doing well, and good morning to you.
Great. So you secured a court injunction on the EC until today, 27th of April, but there were rumors that they had carried that particular meeting to another location. Let's talk about what you know about what transpired at this second location.
Well, they went ahead to have the training workshop, at least for Saturday, that I'm very much aware, in contravention of the court injunction, which said that they should not hold the training, and that holding of a workshop was illegal. However, the Electoral Commission, led by Jean Mensa and Bosman Asari, decided to flout the court order. And so, for me, I believe that they've acted in contempt of court. On Saturday when we were there, I personally saw Bosman Asari and Samuel Tete present. Bosman Asari is a university don who has taught political science and should know better and understands what the court order is. Jim Mensa is a lawyer and knows what a court injunction is. Their decisions to flout the court injunction is regrettable, and as far as I'm concerned, can only be happening because they have the tacit approval of the flag about.
Mr. George, can we go back a bit? Was the EC served with the injunction?
Yes, they were served the injunction.
And was the injunction on the meeting itself or the location?
These arguments that I hear in the media and on social media is quite interesting. How would anybody go to court and file an injunction against a location? I mean, what would be my motivation to go and file an injunction against a location? The injunction and my prayer to the court was simple. I asked the Lord Justice to make a determination on whether the action of the Electoral Commission constituted an illegality. EI 64. And when I went to court, my source document or my reference document were EI 64, EI 65, and EI 67. EI 64, 65, and 67 do not talk about Pram. They have nothing to do with the hotel. So those documents have absolutely no bearing on a hotel, absolutely no bearing on a location, but they have bearings on actions that the EC was engaged in, holding of workshops. So how anybody would want to make this about a location, it beats my mind. It beats my mind. Because the prayer to the court, I went to the court with only one relief, that the court should stop the Electoral Commission from holding a workshop, because holding that workshop was illegal. The court asked me and my counsel, how was it illegal? And we referenced the court to EI 64. EI 64 is clear. EI 64 was not put together by Sam George. It was put together by President Akufo-Addo. And EI 64 is clear that you cannot hold workshops or conferences. EI 65 gives a list of exempted institutions that can hold conferences. The Electoral Commission is not one of them. EI 67 gives an extension to EI 64. The judge looked at all of this and ruled on it. So how this can then become an issue of hotel is really interesting.
But Mr. George, do you know if the EC did indeed hold a workshop?
Oh yes, a workshop was held. But we've seen the attendance sheet. When we got there, they were in there having the training with staff of the Electoral Commission. They were in there having the training with regional directors of the Electoral Commission. That's what they were doing. Why? And even if it was not a workshop, let's even play this. Let's play the devil's advocate. Except it was a private burial that the Electoral Commission was having there. The police had a responsibility to arrest every single one of them there when they got there. When people were having a wedding, which is a social gathering in Obuasi, and the police went there, did they not arrest them? When people were having a wedding in Tamale, because it was a social gathering, did the police not arrest people? When the church in Kumasi was holding a service, which was a religious gathering, and mind you, social gatherings, religious gatherings, and workshops are in the same paragraph of EI 64. The same paragraph that makes social gatherings and religious gatherings illegal at this point in time is the same one that makes workshops or social gatherings illegal. So if the Electoral Commission even claims that it was a social gathering of EC staff, that in itself constituted an illegality.
Okay, so you
because there's the argument of less than 25 people. If you take EI 64, that argument is peculiar to only private burials. It is only private burials that can have a minimum of 25 people. Every other gathering is prescribed by EI 64.
All right.
And the last point I'll make, Mamabi, is that, you see, it is interesting, the kind of hypocrisy in this country, that people will want to suggest that, oh yes, it is an illegality for them to hold it in Pram Pram, but they can come and hold it in airport residential. Why? Different laws apply in Pram Pram and different laws apply in Pram Pram in airport residential. So the laws of Ghana have complete jurisdiction over every town, village, and city in Ghana.
There's a reaction actually in the Daily Graphic newspaper. So I just wanted to say that you don't have to play the devil's advocate. Now, the Graphic newspaper is reporting that a deputy chairperson of the EC in charge of corporate services, Dr. Bosman Asare, has explained that the meeting was an in-house, so it's an in-house meeting of directors, which we hold 3 times in a year as part of our operations. I'm just quoting what they've quoted in the paper. It is an in-house meeting of directors, which would hold 3 times in a year as part of our operations. And he goes on to explain that the meeting could have taken place at the EC's headquarters. He said the EC chose to relocate the meeting to meet the social distancing directives currently in force. He also says, just as other institutions were working in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, the EC is also working in preparation for the 2020 elections. And I'm quoting this directly from the Graphic newspaper. So that's a response to the fact that it wasn't a training session, but it was an in-house meeting, something they could have done in their own premises.
Again, very, very disappointing coming from someone who has been training students in our universities as a political science lecturer and one who's been teaching governance. It is shameful that this will be his excuse. Why do I say so? On Friday, in granting his judgment, in giving his judgment, the Supreme Court judge, the High Court judge who sat on the matter, was very explicit. And today I will share a copy of the judgment with you. The judge was explicit when he said that given the president's latest directives at the time, where the president had lifted the lockdown and allowed for businesses to resume, but to observe social distance measures, if the Electoral Commission had chosen to hold this meeting within their premises, there would have been no breach of the law. The judge was clear about it. The City Escape Hotel at Airport Residential is not the premises of the Electoral Commission. Look, I'll give you a case, a classic case on jurisdiction and how this is interpreted in law. Adler versus George. A ruling was given that nobody should be found in the vicinity of Her Majesty's military installation. Adler found himself within a military installation and was arrested. When he went to court, his argument was that the ruling was that don't be found within the vicinity. Not in the vicinity, he was inside. The court held that he was being very silly. And that is exactly the same application to Osman Asari with his argument. It's very silly arguments to make. What was the intentment of the law in Adler and George? It was for you not to be found anywhere near because they didn't want you to enter. You have entered and you are saying because the law said don't get near, I am inside, so I am not found. But Asari, the law says don't hold a meeting. Except it is within your premises, and then you can practice social distance measures. You can hold a meeting elsewhere and claim that because you wanted to practice social distance measures, you went elsewhere. When the law is clear, don't hold any meeting outside of your premises.
So now that this has happened, what do you intend doing?
Oh, I'm discussing with my lawyers. There's several options available to us. Several options, including citing every single one of them, including the police and national security operatives who came there, who all breached and flouted the Constitution and acted in contempt of court. Because, listen, court orders are meant to, one of the core principles of security services in this country, especially the Ghana Police Service, is the enforcement of court orders. That is the mandate of the police service. The police service came there and instead of enforcing a court order, granted security to people who were flouting a court order. National security operatives came there and instead of enforcing the president's executive instrument, came and granted security to and protection to those who were flouting the president's executive instrument. I asked Kwesi Fori, Chief Superintendent Kwesi Fori, who came there that day. I asked him a simple question, and Colonel Opoko of National Security. I asked them that if on Sunday I decided to go to church or hold a church service with 25 people or less than 25 people and observe social distancing, would they have the right to come and arrest me? When the Electoral Commission is doing exactly the same thing. He couldn't answer the question. The two of them couldn't answer the question. They told me, oh no. I told them if I chose to demonstrate, and in my demonstration, I made sure that everybody, the demonstrators were in groups of 25, equally spaced out and socially spaced out. Would they be able to arrest anybody in light of what they are doing with the Electoral Commission? They couldn't answer. But this is Nanado's Ghana. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. Animal farm situation. When he shoots Nanado and his cronies, they would allow and bend the law. But the president must remember that he swore an oath on the 7th of January 2017 to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution enjoins the president and his security agents to defend court orders and the judiciary.
All right, Mr. George.
They are breaching that.
We'll have to leave it here, but we'll wait for you to give us copies of those court documents so we can all read details of that. That would be very helpful.
Very well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see how this pans out. Kojo Yangsing is also joining us via Zoom, and Samson Ladi Ayenini. Oh, Kojo, hi. There you are.
Hi. Nice to see you, Mamavi.
Oh, okay. So you wanted to ask Sam George a question. I didn't quite get that.
That's all right. That's fine. I think you asked him a lot of the questions that were on my mind. And I actually wanted to get Sam George's explanation for the group that he himself traveled to the hotel with, whether that was not a violation of the president's executive instrument as well. But it's fine. I think you asked him all the questions.
Well, I got this from Samson Ladiayanini, who is a legal practitioner. It says the EI, in fact, together with the IRA, which is the Imposition of Restrictions Act, grants exemption to essential services, but to work and not to hold conferences and workshops, as some judge just stated. Exemption to work, not to hold gatherings like conferences and workshops. Well, we're waking up to this day, a working day. We'll see how institutions, appropriate institutions, respond to what happened on Saturday. Roland?
Yeah, so we have to also move on and then continue to do what a demonstration is. And Mamavi has a demonstration on how to wear face masks.
Well, this is just my little way, you know, after we saw that video of the South African president, Ajayi Yeboah made me this one. Well, a number of them. So Ajayi Yeboah, thank you. So before you wear the mask, you must sanitize. That's very important. How many of you actually do it? Sanitize before you wear the mask. Roland, do you?
All the time. I think most of my sanitizers, I get supplies
before you wear the mask. And then hopefully I don't do. So you are not supposed to touch the front of it. And here you go. That's how you do it.
Okay.
You don't have to hold here. But because I've sanitized, you must use your hands to make sure that it flattens here. So that there's no space. Air.
Okay.
Exactly. That's the whole idea.
Right. This is an education.
Don't touch. Don't touch. Because you know, when I speak, everything is forming around here.
Yeah.
So when you touch, the possibility of you touching something that you're not supposed to touch is very high. You get it? So this is it. Always sanitize. And something I learned, when you get home, don't mix it with the rest of your dirty clothes. Soak it in water. Soak it in warm water. Don't add it with the rest of your things. All right. Roland, how did I do?
Fantastic.
Okay.
I think that unlike Cyril Ramaphosa, you rehearsed.
No, I didn't actually. I just watched him and I figured it out.
There's good reason why we're recording just the number of cases in Africa, even in Ghana. It's because we saw what happened in Asia, China particularly, in Europe, and so we had hindsight. You had hindsight, even though Cyril Ramaphosa also had
Okay,
hindsight.
that's it. Log on to myjawline.com. We've got plenty of headlines there. Right now, though, we have to take a breather and bring you sports.
Hi there, my name is Benedict Toos. Welcome to the sports segment here on AM Show. It's a Monday morning, and our very first story this morning, the issue of pay cuts for the Ghana Premier League players have resurfaced following the indefinite suspension of the Ghana Premier League. Now, Asante Kotoko are still in talks with their players and the technical team to look at a reduction in percentage of their monthly earnings. Now, other clubs are also considering it, but is it realistic? Well, Toma Youth owner Wilfredo Sekou thinks it is impossible.
When you look at the fact that the average or the highly paid Division 1 player is taking about 800 Ghana cedis, and looking at the economic circumstances, where are you going to get a pay cut for such a person when after the COVID-19 prices of items are skyrocketing? How would such a player be able to survive? When it comes to contractual obligations between clubs and players, it borders on two parties. And one cannot unilaterally cut down whatever initial arrangement that was made. We need to continue to respect the sanctity of such contracts and honor all part of it. Cost center or the bills high. It is being financed from equity sources. If you go to Doma, that is Aduana, it doesn't vary that much from what we do. Nana generates business to pay the players, all the attractive signing-on fees that are paid here and there, what is coming from individual pockets. That is why at a given point I said, if we don't take time, we'll get to a certain point that it will be difficult for those philanthropies to still dole out money and sponsor the respective clubs. If this time and age, we have people who are very wealthy declining to take the offer to more or less fund certain clubs in the country, it should tell you that if we don't take time and try and tinker the way we go about this, we'll get to a certain point that football teams in Ghana will not have the needed funding. When you go the world all over, or within certain jurisdiction, it's corporate funds that are used to pipe all the cost centers of the respective clubs. But in Ghana, it's the opposite. We are rather using private money to do that. That is why some of us are of the view that we should have taken our time and thrown the bait at corporate Ghana in terms of repackaging ourselves, in terms of rebranding the way we do our things. And the moment, if we had been able to do that, corporate Ghana would have been able to come on board. So pay cut is not the way out. If you even take Barcelona, Tottenham, or what is happening within the advanced jurisdiction, you realize that it was the players by their own evolution who made or tabled those proposals for such pay cuts to be made in our part of the world. If you don't take time and you throw a blank check on respective clubs that they should cut down respective pays of players, salaries of players, we'll get to a certain point that these players will take home nothing. And that is what we must try and avoid.
It was Chelsea's night, it was Didier Drogba's night. He scored the last penalty, and what was so amazing in that game is he caused the penalty, which if Arjen Robben had scored, that would have been it. Bayern would have been crowned champions. And then later when he got to the penalty shootout, Drogba was the man who stepped up and scored the last penalty for Chelsea to win. So he is in the news. Well, over the weekend, something happened in Ivory Coast, and his quest to lead the Ivorian Football Federation received a major blow as former players unanimously voted for his rival. Now, 11 out of 40 members of the association, that's of the former Ivorian Footballers Association, endorsed Diabete for the top job, with 3 members abstaining. Now, Drogba and Idriss Diallo, who is the president of the FIF vice president, received no vote. Now, the vote was taken through video conference, and is the president of Professional Football League of Cote d'Ivoire. Before declaring his candidature, he was endorsed by 48 professional clubs, making him the most favorite to replace Augustin Sidi Diallo, the current Ivorian Football Federation president. And that's how we end sports this morning here on the AM Show. My name is Benedict Tosi. Thanks so much for your company. The show continues after this short break. Don't go away.
We're going to beef up our existing laboratories and establish new ones across every region for testing. We will establish 3 infectious disease control centers for each of the zones of our country, that is the coastal, middle belt, and northern, with the overall objective of setting up a Ghana Center for Disease Control. The recent tragic CSM outbreak, with over 40 deaths, has reaffirmed the need for ready access to such infectious disease control centers, even though in our time, nobody should die of the disease. Early reporting is what is required, and I implore everybody to heed this call. As the Christian celebration of Easter was severely affected by the virus, resulting in the cancellation of the usual activities associated with Easter, the holy month of Ramadan has not been spared either. It is my understanding that in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, any time there was heavy rain, he admonished the faithful through the azan to stay in their houses and pray rather than going to the mosques. In Bukhari's collection of the Hadith, Book 13, Hadith number 24, Ibn Sirin reports that Ibn Abbas said to his muezzin, and I quote, "After saying, I testify that Muhammad is Allah's messenger, do not say, come for the prayer, but say, pray in your houses. It was done by one much better than I, that is, the Prophet." Through analogical deduction, Muslim scholars agree that rain represented danger, and therefore the prescription for Muslims to stay at home and pray in times of heavy rain is applicable to all life-threatening situations. I thus call on all Muslims to heed this prophetic admonishment, to pray at home, so we can protect ourselves from the danger of COVID-19. This is in line with the counsel of the wise, devout Muslim scholar, the Chief Imam, Sheikh Dr. Usman Nuhu Sharabutu. I wish all Muslims Ramadan Mubarak.
So the president spoke at length about all the measures that have been taken so far. So we'll speak to Dr. Paul Osodro. He's a known public health specialist and a consultant as well in that area. Now, good morning to you, Dr. Osodro. If you look at the president's speech, it follows the protocols. How does that, in a way, also sync with, you look at the incremental number of cases that had been recorded on the day, alongside the speech that he gave to reassure the ordinary Ghanaian in the first place? Dr. Drew, are you on the line? Dr. Drew? Well, we seem to have some difficulty trying to establish that line. We'll make sure we do that. Again, we'll go over to the speech and bring you, again, a part that also speaks volumes to the effort being made by government and the rest of the ministries, departments, and agencies that are working in tandem to make sure that coronavirus is well managed in our country.
We're going to beef up our existing laboratories and establish new ones across every region for testing. We will establish 3 infectious disease control centers for each of the zones of our country, that is the coastal, middle belt, and northern, with the overall objective of setting up a Ghana Center for Disease Control. The recent tragic CSM outbreak, with over 40 deaths, has reaffirmed the need for ready access to such infectious disease control centers, even though in our time, nobody should die of the disease. Early reporting is what is required, and I implore everybody to heed this call. Just as the Christian celebration of Easter was severely affected by the virus, resulting in the cancellation of the usual activities associated with Easter, the holy month of Ramadan has not been spared either. It is my understanding that in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, any time there was heavy rain, he admonished the faithful through the azan to stay in their houses and pray rather than going to the mosques. In Bukhari's collection of the hadith, Book 13, Hadith number 24, Ibn Sirin reports that Ibn Abbas said to his muezzin, and I quote, "After saying, 'I testify that Muhammad is Allah's messenger,' do not say, 'Come for the prayer,' but say, 'Pray in your houses.' It was done by one much better than I, that is, the Prophet." Through analogical deduction, Muslim scholars agree that rain represented danger, and therefore the prescription for Muslims to stay at home and pray in times of heavy rain is applicable to all life-threatening situations. I thus call on all Muslims to heed this prophetic admonishment, to pray at home, so we can protect ourselves from the danger of COVID-19. This is in line with the counsel of the wise, devout Muslim scholar, the Chief Imam, Sheikh Dr. Usman Nuhu Sharabutu. I wish all Muslims Ramadan Mubarak.
And Dr. Paul Osodro, the public health specialist and consultant, is back on stream. Good morning to you, Dr. Paul Osodro. Now, what do you make of the president's speech in relation to the guidelines that he's entreating all Ghanaians to follow, and then also how that has an impact generally till now on public health and management of cases in relation to how we've seen the incremental numbers at the time that he gave his speech? 1,550 in excess as we saw it.
All right. Good morning, Roland.
Morning. Please just go ahead.
Yes. Let me start from the case count. We have to be clear how we bundle the figures about. What we are seeing are not new infections. If you remember very well, during the president's last address, he said we still had a backlog of some samples to test. So the positive cases we are getting is as a result of the backlog testing we are doing. It has no relation with new infections. So we shouldn't be really worried about what we are seeing. I mean, it is expected. Once you test, you will see. So the more we test, the more likely we are to encounter higher numbers. Secondly, on the measures the president put out, as of now, we don't have any known treatment. We don't have vaccine for prevention. So what we basically do is preventive measures in order to halt the spread of the infection. We know majority of the infections occur through contact with infected persons. So any measure that aims at limiting as much as possible contact with persons is a step in the right direction. So I agree perfectly with the president with a 2 weeks extra extension on the ban of public gathering. I think last week also he made mention of we wearing masks mandatorily. We should be very careful with that because the mask, as we all know, is a filtering device. It is just like the sieve or the strainers we use at home. If you are preparing palm nut soup, you use the domestic strainer, and that one is able to filter out the fibers or the chaff you have from the palm fruit. If you go to the market, those who sell doughs, corn doughs, cassava doughs, they also have a type of sieve which removes chaffs from the dough. But the holes, or what we technically call the pores in those sieves, are different. So depending on how you want your mixture to be, will inform the kind of sieve you use. What I mean is, with the fixed mask, they all have their filtering capacities. So for the ordinary cloth masks and the surgical masks, they may be able to filter out the large droplets and maybe medium-sized droplets. But we've come to realize that with this COVID-19 transmission, there is something we call short or close-range aerosol transmission. And that is very critical in the spread by asymptomatic patients, because we say for the COVID-19, majority of the transmission occurs when someone coughs or sneezes and releases droplets which may fall in your eyes, nose, or mouth. Asymptomatic transfer also occurs. When we say asymptomatic, it means those people are not coughing, they are not sneezing. So there may be means by which they are transferring. And that is through aerosol. Aerosol are produced when you speak, when you talk, when you exhale, in addition to the coughing and then the sneezing. These aerosols are very fine particles that may escape bigger pores or holes in some filters. So at this point, I believe the FDA must make it a point or take it upon themselves to ensure that the filters on the market have the right filtering capacity in order to be able to protect the public. Other than that, it will create a false sense of security, and we may lower the guard on some of these preventive measures, and that may possibly cause a spike in the infection rate.
We know that this encouragement to wear masks, even though safe, is also following a release from the Ghana Health Service that was, and also with the Ministry of Health, that was issued just before the close of the weekend. Now, in the statement, it said directs, okay, the Minister of Health hereby directs. In the scheme of public safety, how does using words like direct become enforceable within the remit of ensuring that public health is achieved?
Direct is more of, I mean, as we speak now, there is no law which makes it legal for the wearing of mask. So what we see is more of an advice. An advice could be taken or not. If somebody fails to wear the mask, I don't know of any law which may lead to the prosecution of that person. So I believe, as a matter of urgency, maybe some amendment could be made to the Public Health Act 851/2012 of Ghana in order to ensure that it is mandatorily worn. Alternatively, I think what the supermarket and then other public places are doing is encouraged, because if you don't have the marks, you will not be admitted. So in the absence of a legal framework, this may help. But I believe for the greater good, if some enactment of a sort could be made to make it compulsory or give a legal backing to this advice, that may go a long way to help the public, rather than just an advice for people to wear. And also, it is important that, if possible, government should make these things free as much as possible to some of the vulnerable and poor population. Because someone may say, I don't have money to buy the mask, that's why I'm not wearing. At that point, what can you do? Nothing. But if it is made available and the person fails to wear, then some form of punishment could be meted out to the person if we have a legal backing to that effect.
Now, it's been 7 days since we had the lockdown lifted. Arguably, there are movements to and fro, whether from the existing or the initial lockdown cities to other communities or cities across Ghana. For public health analysis or observation, what could be the effect, trickle-down effect on case management, spread, and related matters?
The truth of the matter is, we don't have facilities across the country. And I think the president alluded to it during his address yesterday, that
please go on, Dr. Osodro.
Okay, I think the line dropped, sorry. So the president alluded to the fact that we don't have equal distribution of health facilities across the country. So it will become very burdensome in some areas if we have a spike in the cases of COVID-19 in those areas. The best advice is, now that the restrictions have been lifted, you cannot prevent people from moving. So as much as possible, I believe these thermometer guns should be deployed in all public places where temperatures of persons moving in and out of those places will be taken at random. And we have to do it very fast, because with the onset of the raining, with the onset of the rains, malaria is likely to kickstart. And malaria also presents with high temperatures. So if we don't do it very fast and the malaria kicks in, it may affect some of these things. Secondly, testing in this instance is very key, as has been championed by WHO. The CDC of US released quite a frightening statistics, I think, last week. The US is likely to hit its 1 million mark today. What the report said, that the number of persons infected, about 25% of them were asymptomatic as at the time they were detected. And out of the 25%, 18% of them will go on to recover without showing any signs or symptoms, meaning those people will not even know they have contracted the infection. So if you look at the US statistics, for example, it means 250,000 are asymptomatic, and out of that, about 45,000 will not show any signs or symptoms. And looking at how fast this disease spread, if you have this large pool of asymptomatic persons in the community, there is no way we are going to be able to win the fight against this. So I will expect that we also increase the number of testing facilities available. We should get to a point where testing will be made accessible to every person who presents with the slightest sign or symptom. And then we also go into the high-risk communities and then test as many as possible. so that we can move these asymptomatic persons out of the society. I remember during our last week interaction, I also made a call for frontline workers to be tested because they may present a very high risk and may start a second wave of epidemic if we are not careful. I saw the Ashanti Regional Health Director lay out some plans to test high-risk persons like commercial bus drivers, market women, and then frontline workers. That is the way to go, because these persons come into contact with a lot of people who may be asymptomatic and for which reason they may contract the infection. So once we go into the community and target these high groups and then we test, those who are asymptomatic will be picked out of the community and then we'll be able to at least have a hold on the infection. But as we speak now, we'll still be recording cases. The pandemic is far from over. It will be with us for some time now. Without vaccine or appropriate treatment, we just have to make sure we stick to the precautionary measures and then try to manage the cases that come along the way.
We've also been joined on stream by Dr. Colonel Festus Aboagye, retired. Sorry, I was adding more accolades to your initials. He is a security analyst and a consultant. And good morning to you, Colonel Aboagye.
Good morning, Roland.
Well, I called you doctor. I'll take it off. So now
never mind.
We
don't deserve that.
we stick with the Colonel. But there's again a reiteration of that caution, saying that everybody should wear face masks. And I was just thinking about it. Even though there's a statement formally from the Ghana Health Service, it says in the wording directs. Within the realm or scheme of security, the structure of security architecture, how enforceable is that?
Well, I think if it comes to the wearing of masks, it's obvious that you can easily identify who is wearing one and who is not wearing one. It's not like the previous situation where you needed to ascertain the veracity of what the individual was telling you, that I'm going to work or I'm going to buy food. So it's a very clear-cut question. If all Ghanaians accept what the president said, which is for our good, they must put on the mask. If we're not wearing the mask, the question then becomes, what do we do with the individual? What should the security forces do with that individual? Let me leave the legalities aside, whether there is a law backing what the president has said or not. But there will be a number of courses of action available to the security personnel. One is, depending on the locality, you can send the person back home. But back home, if it's 3 kilometers away, it's not going to be as simple as it might sound. You can't detain the person, i.e., temporarily restrict the movement. And maybe, as we've seen in the media, keep them waiting until you are satisfied before you allow them to go home. But it will be easier for the security forces to expect and demand of every citizen to wear the mask. I'm not too sure whether they can detain persons in their numbers if they are not wearing the mask. And in the absence of a law, as being suggested, whether they can use that to prosecute. So it's a question of the numbers of persons that the security forces might come across who are not wearing a face mask.
Now, knowing that it's been 7 days since we lifted the lockdown, and knowing that definitely there will be movement of people, what have you heard? What have you observed? What, in your own capacity, is your concern about, from the last time we spoke, the enforcement of movement in relation to how that could curb restrictions or improve the current situation of people applying to what the general guidelines or rules are?
Yeah. Sincerely, I haven't been out much. I think I said last week that I only went to Kuntunse DVLA to renew my roadworthiness. then to Providence Circle to renew my insurance. Then came home. I've not been out much, but from what I'm seeing on the radio, in the media, the challenge still remains the nature of our society, i.e., where we live, the conditions under which we live, and then the markets, largely the markets, how we go about, pursuing our livelihoods by way of trade and buying and selling at the markets. So, mask aside, social distancing becomes quite an issue. Yesterday, I think we had the president comment, is it one of the markets in Secondary Takwa? They have forgotten the name. I haven't seen that footage, but it's going to be very difficult, a bit difficult, for market women to socially distance. And then for the persons who are going to buy to also socially distance. So I had occasion to suggest that rather than leave the market open for everybody to enter, we could regulate or control the number of persons who enter market areas to buy. If we can let people enter the market in numbers with some forms of escorts, that security forces escorts, and bring them out and let other persons go in, probably that might be helpful. I've also suggested a curfew, that the fact that we're supposed to trade doesn't mean that markets must open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., for instance. So we could impose some curfews. The whole idea is not to restrict the livelihoods, but to try and minimize the degree of contact among different segments, of the society. So I want to believe that the security forces have been going about their duties. They should still be on the roads by way of very limited roadblocks and checkpoints, but patrolling, looking around for persons who are not socially distancing, and then for others who may not be wearing the face mask, or for those who are gathering, whether for religious or for social activities. How well they are being able to do that, I think I cannot personally speak to that because I have not been about town.
Because I just want to wrap up. Now, we know that we've had an extension of the restrictions, additional 2 more weeks. In that, the president sort of sought to, whether to admonish unpatriotic Ghanaians who, so to speak, aid so-called aliens or foreigners to make entry. Now, the question is, the restrictions, extension, good? Now, is it that we have all along had Ghanaians who apparently are the reasons why we have foreigners making entry to the illegal borders, etc.? But while we know all along it should be the work of the forces, immigration, etc. at these border points?
Yeah. Well, it will be very strange, and I'm not speaking about the president, but it will be very strange for any one of us to expect that all of a sudden, all of us in Ghana have become law-abiding. That will be a very long shot. So the fact remains that at all times, since we have been together as Ghanaians and even before, there have been persons who have made it their livelihoods to, flout regulations, whether by smuggling or some other antisocial criminal activities. So the Galamsey, I believe, is still going on. Cross-border smuggling will still be going on. And the president was right by saying that I think somewhere in the OT or other regions to the east, there was this case of a group of people or persons who were intercepted. Now, what worries me is that from a military perspective or security force perspective, discipline is not something that you expect even security personnel to comply with. So we have self-discipline and we have enforced discipline. And the rationale or the philosophy of the enforced discipline is that, look, being human beings, if you tell a soldier not to go to point A, the very reason that you say don't go to point A, that soldier will go there. So that's what we've been saying in the media, that for the mere fact that you say Ghanaians must stay at home, some Ghanaians want to come out to see whether indeed everybody is staying at home. So it might be a field day for those who are engaged in some of these, criminal activities, ferrying people in and out of the country, for a number of reasons, but ultimately for some means of livelihood. So it stands to reason that we need to tighten the border security, and that wouldn't mean that every inch of our borders will have to be, manned by security personnel. But we need to increase the capacities that they have, the numbers that we have deployed, the gadgets that we have equipped them with, and then the methods that they use. For instance, if you cannot man your borders 100%, you can have certain strategic or tactical checkpoints along certain routes. So even if you don't intercept at the borders, you can intercept within certain distances into the country.
Okay.
It's going to be a tough call, and I believe that the security forces, are doing the best that they can. Again, as always, some of these persons are well known to the security forces, i.e. the immigration officers. So, again, bribery might be part of the equation, that somebody induces a security or immigration officer to allow him or her to enter with a certain number of persons. We can't rule that out. So that becomes an internal policing matter for the immigration services. By and large, all of us are citizens. And as I said also, ensuring some of these measures requires, in fact, all of them, requires the cooperation and collaboration collectively of the communities, of the assembly men and women, and of the different levels of authorities at the district and then at the regional level. All of us as Ghanaians must become part of the effort in enforcing or practicing the guidelines that have been outlined by the president.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Colonel Festus Aboagye, retired, is a security analyst and a consultant, and he's been helping us. And Dr. Paul Oduro is also a public health specialist and a consultant as well, teaches his field, and so also helping us with all the analysis, talking about the president's speech. But before I let you go, Dr. Paul Oduro, in 2 minutes, tell me, we have these restrictions going to go on for the next 2 weeks. In 2 minutes, tell me, that's the way we have to go, and for how long do you think we need to keep having these extensions?
Okay, so it will be important at this point to know our daily infection rates. And we can only tell if we are doing well if we begin to see a decline of the daily infection rate. As we speak now, samples are taken over a period and then they are run. So results are released, and that may cover samples that have been taken for about a week. So with this, you wouldn't be able to know what you are recording on a daily basis for you to know whether the measures you've put in place are working or not. So until these backlogs are cleared, and then possibly we expand some of these testing centers to other places in order for us to have results in real time, it may be very difficult to tell how we are doing as far as managing our daily infections rate are concerned.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dr. Paul Oduro, a public health specialist and a consultant, and we'll take a look at other related issues. And this one I have from Bonti Benjamin. Achimi Buakwa says the president said the details of hospital projects, and we don't have to say, will be made transparent and open to public scrutiny and action. And he continued, the doomsayers who predicted free SHS education is not possible, now crying foul that it's not in the budget. Meanwhile, government's relief for Ghanaians on electricity and water, etc. in this era was also not captured in the 2020 budget. Let's support President Akufo-Addo to succeed. I'm talking about all the related things that we need to take a look at. You do know that we talked to the Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, Sam George, early on. And Martin Kpebu is joining us on the same issue as to whether the Electoral Commission may have flouted any of that injunction directive or not. And so, Mr. Kpebu, straight away I put it to you. Looking at what you observed as being reported over the weekend, what's your own legal opinion on this subject?
Okay, Mama, matters like this, in contempt action, the first will be looking out for is that when the EC, that the EC was fair with the court order. That's very, very fundamental, because in contempt there are different types. Not to send this to the lecture, but this type that we're basing on a court order, an express court order, that the beginning is that you must find that the order was served on the EC. Okay. And the order is.
Well, Mr. Kpebu, we seem to having some difficulty with your line because it's a mobile one. Can you just reposition yourself so that there's clarity in audio? Mr. Kpebu? We seem to have lost Mr. Kpebu. We'll try and get him on stream. We will again visit the subjects, and there are a number of things that have been mentioned so far, and we'll take a look at them. Mr. Kpebu, are you back on the line? Okay, but look, we'll move on and talk about our next conversation. We'll be having here Mr. Senyo Hosi is a CEO for the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, but also a businessman or an entrepreneur. and then also Mr. Evans Sari will be joining us. He's a senior manager for KPMG. We'll look at the implications of coronavirus on small, mid-sized businesses, post-coronavirus, what actions need to be taken, and looking at what the perspectives are from the Bretton Woods institutions, independent analysts, what could be available for them, and how they need to move on with life. Well, we'll be looking at all that next, but I'm told Mr. Martin Kpebu is back on the line. Mr. Martin Kpebu, are you back on the line?
Yes.
Okay. So you were saying, please continue for me.
So I've mentioned the first one, saying that the fundamental, our preliminary point is that we have to be informed that he was served with the court order not to hold a meeting. That one, I don't know where they stand on it, because I don't see that in the media. But the other point then is that in the court order, it was stated that the meeting should not take place. That is City Escape Hotel, Prampram. What we find is that the meeting allegedly took place in airport behind the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, I've heard commentators, some say that the order was specific, that the meeting should not take place in Prampram. As such, if the meeting is brought to Accra, it is not a violation of the court order. Well, because it's law, you can have different lawyers having different opinions. But for me, I don't subscribe to that opinion that the meeting was restricted to Prampram. No. You can see from the context that it is the meeting that the court sought to injunct. The court made a prohibition order that the meeting should not take place, because reading the court papers, you could see that because of the CI 65 and others, where the president has stated that there should be no gathering of more than 25 people. Even the 25 persons, that one is for funeral. Okay? Yes, so because there is a law saying that not more than 25 people should gather, and that's in exceptional circumstances. The court order was meant at preventing a meeting of about 40 persons. I think from the papers, the EC officers witnesses were 40 or so, right? Yes, so you see that in substance, it's a gathering of about 40 persons that the court order sought to prohibit. So whether you book a meeting in Pram, in Boko, in Agdim, wherever, it would still be a violation of the court order.
What remedies are there for Mr. Sam George?
Oh, obviously, we were discussing this in the context of contempt of court. So it's for him to decide whether he wants to mount an action for contempt of court against the EC, or that he would let it pass.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Martin Kpebu is a legal practitioner and helping us with the discussion. Straight away, we will look at that next conversation. Mr. Senyo Hosi is CEO, Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, also an entrepreneur. We're looking at the impact of coronavirus on small and mid-sized businesses, and especially the young demographics in the population that are venturing into entrepreneurship, what is available for them by way of innovation, growth, education, and credit as it is, and post-coronavirus, what should we be looking at? He will be joined by Mr. Evans Asare. He is a senior manager for KPMG, and I tell you all the analysis right here. Do stay with us.
Well, let me share with you words of Dorothy Tembo, Executive Director, AI International Trade Center. She says, there's no doubt that the coronavirus pandemic will bring about the most significant global changes that will be felt for generations. We see this with every new report of rising fatalities and closing businesses. For most countries, the impact will be severe, but for developing countries and those in Africa in particular, it could be catastrophic. Our concentration this morning is on businesses, small, medium businesses in this era of this pandemic. We're going to have a great conversation, and hopefully in the end, we would have given you some ideas if you're struggling right now, trying to look for innovative ways, or if you're doing something small right now, how you can even expand in this era of the pandemic. I've got great company in studio. Is an entrepreneur, but also a CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors. Mr. Senyo Hosi is here. Good morning to you. Thank you for coming.
The pleasure is mine.
Joining us via Zoom is Mr. Evans Asare, his senior manager, KPMG. If you can hear me, Mr. Asare, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Great to have you. So let's start.
Thank you so much.
From in studio. I want to ask you, even though we're still trying to build up on the statistics, the virus is still with us. It's affecting everybody, really. Yep. But in country, how is it telling on businesses?
I think that's very, very obvious, something that it's very open for everybody to see. Movement is significantly restricted. The hawkers have definitely experienced some drop in sales. Media is feeling the same. Petroleum is feeling the same. Every sector is actually feeling the same. Demand generally has dropped, and beyond demand actually dropping, you're actually faced with major unemployment. You look at the African Union stats, it's already providing for about 20 million job losses within the formal sector. You look at about 150 million job losses in the informal sector. And those who are going to be hit the most will definitely be the youth. And we're already, as a continent, struggling to see how we're going to deal with about 100 million youth who are actually going to join the unemployment workforce every year. And then Corona makes it even worse. So yes, it's a dire situation, but within that view that one may have are also opportunities that could actually still transform Africa.
Mr. Asare, from where you sit, are there early evidence and estimates about the impact?
Okay, yes. So let me look at it from a global perspective. I mean, the IMF has given us some figures for us to work with. So the estimates that the total loss in terms of economic output, if this thing travels to 2021, is almost $9 trillion. And that, if I may put it in perspective, it's almost the economies of Germany, UK put together. And that is huge. If we come home, we're estimating that we're going to have a wipeout of our GDP of almost 5.3%. So we're estimating 6.8% growth. But today, we know it is 1.5%. So it is really going to be a significant impact on the economy.
Okay. Mr. Hosey?
In terms of...
Okay.
In terms of revenue, for instance, government is projecting that it's going to, have a huge deficit. Already, our budget, put in balance anyways, and then we have revenue shortfall. So the deficit is expected to widen, and it's going to go beyond the maximum 5% that we normally would have wished we had.
Okay. Mr. Hosey, you have something to say on that, on those figures you shared?
I'm an economic policy analyst myself, but I have a more pessimistic view.
Okay.
I think the government would have done a great job to actually break even and actually have a 0% growth. We have a bigger risk of having negative growth than I think we seem to be admitting today.
What do you see that maybe others don't see?
I don't think others don't see. I mean, as market watchers, you need to actually sometimes have a very positive view to things. So yes, we are looking at formally a major drop in growth. But looking at how things are turning out today, I think the government will be doing a great job to actually have a 0% growth. So anything beyond that should be quite constructive. So I rather want to have an economy planned towards a 0% growth than anybody actually even looking at any kind of positive growth whatsoever. One, how do we take advantage of the current situation? You have a major drop. We are heavily dependent on some imports. We are having most of those barriers shut today. Rice is a major staple. You have Vietnam, you have Thailand actually cutting out exports today. You have India as a major supplier of medicine to the global space as far as Ghana as well. And you're having them shut out supplies as far as certain things are concerned. All right? That's going to have a major crash on most African economies. China itself has its own challenges. What opportunities are we turning around this particular situation? That should be the key thing. And you can only do that when you actually have more of a pessimistic view to the economy and want to rather take advantage of the situation and see how you can better position yourself within the broader African space and create a new market for ourselves. And I don't see that yet, but I hope that all of us as entrepreneurs and policymakers should start getting a bit more awoken to that.
Okay, so let's just, from where you ended, let's jump into the opportunities available today. We know what we don't have, but this disease has also brought some innovations. What is there today for people to take advantage of?
One of the things that Corona is doing is fast-tracking our preparedness for, or probably our presence in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I mean, space is becoming less meaningful than it used to be because most of us don't spend much time in our offices like we used to. So it means that the real estate people will have to start rethinking their business. Those in the tourism business will also have to start rethinking their businesses. So you need to see how you can be more IT driven in your business. All right, now everybody's talking about Zoom, people are talking about Skype, people are talking about Hangout that people never used to be accustomed to. And that is a new normal that's going to evolve. So nobody should look at these things as something that's a bit more transient and like we nowadays used to like to say, these two shall pass. I don't accept these two shall pass. You should be more proactive in your economic space and rather want to overcome. And I don't think this is a matter of overcoming. It's about adaptation. How are you going to leverage IT in doing your business? And this is good news for the unemployed youth. You are a bit more savvy at IT than you actually find your uncles and your aunties being. There's a lot more job losses that we are likely going to face because you are not going to have this continuous dip in economic productivity within the private sector and expect people to still sustain the employment base. So creativity now becomes a defining factor. And it's going to be a lot more IT driven. What services can you deliver more remotely? The competition will be the space within the social media sphere, which the youth would understand much better than myself. I'm still trying to get used to Instagram.
You're very youthful.
I hope so, but I see teenagers much more competent at what are the real opportunities than I think I find myself. So those graduating today and worried about unemployment should start looking at new opportunities. Then the next thing for those of us who are probably more advanced in there is start looking at how we can get more active in the production space, in the industrial space. Because Ghana and Africa will need to start producing a lot more things for its own self. Corona is telling us that when push comes to shove, each man for himself, God for us all. Thailand doesn't want to export rice. Vietnam doesn't want to export rice. These are major suppliers of rice in this country. So how do we get the agriculture sector going back on its feet? So those with capital, the businesses will have to start looking and thinking differently. You take sanitizers. A lot of demand is coming from the US right now for sanitizers. If we had positioned ourselves and probably shut our borders a bit earlier, possibly would have been global exporters of sanitizers and other PPEs. So while we are looking at ways to stimulate productivity, taking advantage of this situation, we also have to look at sustainability. Are we going to be able to produce PPEs like we currently have some new companies doing? What sustainable interventions are we going to have from government to make sure these people will not just go beyond this immediate corona problem and probably have this business thrive over the next 10, 15 years? Those are the jobs of the future. So STEM education becomes key, creativity within our space becomes key, you have IT become critical, and we need to let our youth be. We need to inspire them to let themselves and let them actualize their own self. This is their time. I mean, amidst all this problem, it is the time for the youth to excel and their creativity be allowed to thrive within our economic space. So, I mean, it's time to encourage everybody to do something.
Mr. Sari, let me bring you in here. IT driven, how many of our businesses, from what you see, what you can analyze, can catch up with this new normal?
Thank you. It's not a lot of them can catch up with this new normal. I mean, even big businesses are still struggling. If you look at some of the players in the financial services sector, some of them appear not to be prepared for this virtual work, out of the physical space. And so if you look at SMEs, then you really have a difficult situation here. So I largely agree with Senyor's point of view that this is an opportunity for the youth to capitalize on. If you look at the cyberspace, I mean, a lot of work is now going to move into that space. And so if you are an IT person, I mean, this is the time for you to start thinking that, okay, what are the various risks that moving into the virtual space, bring? For instance, we have these whole hackers, cyber attacks all going on across the globe. In fact, this COVID has doubled or even increased the number of hackings that, the FBI is reporting a 4-fold increase in the reports that come to them on, COVID attacks. And so IT people now have to start thinking, how do I create something that will help businesses that are moving into the space? The hackers will see that as their home base, so they will play the home advantage. That's where they have always been. We have always been in the physical space. Now we are going to join them. So how do we create that and ring fence the business such that we don't get exposed to all these hackings that occur across the globe? I also believe that one of the areas that this whole pandemic has exposed us so much is our healthcare infrastructure. And it is an opportunity for the youth to start thinking that, look, what devices can we create that we are able to provide healthcare services in a very seamless way so that we don't need to be building physical infrastructure. Yes, even COVID, some of the patients were sent home to be treated. Some were given, the opportunity to recuperate at home, and then they were given service. So the youth need to start thinking, what can we do to provide healthcare service in a very IT-driven manner? That is an opportunity that we need to start thinking about. Also, I think research and development also comes to the fore, R&D. Now we are thinking of vaccine. And I was happy that, a Ghanaian was able to, put the genome together of this COVID. And then he was commended by our president. The youth in science would have to start thinking, what can we do in this whole space of finding a vaccine for these kind of pandemics? And especially we know that these viruses normally mutate. So we have to be thinking a step ahead of the virus because we are certain that another pandemic is going to happen. And when it happens, are we really prepared for it?
Let me just ask research and development and the importance of that in this era. And then I'll come to, because I want everybody to be able to relate to this conversation. If you have an auntie or your mother sells an Makola or Malata, for instance, what can you do as the person who is educated, who is now at home, doing nothing and perhaps looking for a job? How can you take advantage of that situation? But let's talk about the research bits. With you, Mr. Asare.
Okay, so if I get you right, I mean, if you are home and your mother sells an Makola, what can you do to help? Is that the question? Okay,
I wanted us to talk about the importance of research and then, but
research. Okay, yes. Okay, all right. So research is critical. I mean, this whole pandemic has sort of triggered this whole research that is going on, especially in the development of ventilators. I was so happy to hear that our people here in Ghana are developing prototypes and then other equipment to help us, battle this pandemic. So you need research and development to be able to produce such equipment, especially a ventilator, and to be able to test it and make sure that it is efficient and you can then commercialize it. We are looking at this solar panel that someone developed for washing hand. It is quite innovative, and we need such hubs, and therefore it makes it critical for us to start thinking about these industrial zones, and then this business incubation idea that we've always mooted. That look, we set up industrial zones to encourage research and development, especially into IT infrastructure and into healthcare. How can we marry the two, IT and healthcare? There is a lot that we can do there to help, especially even solving our situation of low bed syndrome. What IT solution can we provide such that you don't take a patient to a hospital where there is no bed, that you have an IT solution that will tell you where there is bed available so that you are able to transport the patient there to get the healthcare that the person requires. So research and development cannot be overemphasized in this situation.
Sanya, we hear all these things nicely said, but this is Ghana. I mean, are we seriously going to take advantage of this?
The problem we've had is that we hardly plan for the future. We live by the day in our country, and policy has always been positioned that way. And I think if anything at all, we should realize that it's not sustainable. I've been criticizing this. I've also been criticizing our educational system because it's not been futuristic. We should be able to anticipate that the fourth industrial revolution is practically taking over the world. We should prepare ourselves for that. If we had, this would have been a perfect opportunity for us to unleash our potential. We haven't. But it's not too late. It's better late than never. So how do we scale that? I'll use your Makola. I used to sell in Okaishi. So I like the Makola example. Your mother actually sells at Makola today. Fewer people are coming there because, and probably she herself stands the risk of actually getting COVID-19. How do you register most of her customers today and tell them they don't need to actually move into the market? You're going to now invest in the supply chain to deliver things right at their door, right at their shop, so that they can resell from that point. When you start that, you actually build beyond your mother and see you're going to actually manage an e-commerce platform for all the other shops by your mother's place, all the aunties that you possibly were growing around. That's the creativity we need today, and even beyond. You can't want to do things the same old way. Ghana man starts a business and it's one store, and he thinks everybody has to keep queuing in front of that store. I don't know how sometimes we think. Watch a woman has a business, and she wants people there to be a very long queue because that's the only way people will see that her watch is good. It's time for you to realize that you need data. Can you build a database of your customers? So you, instead of Mama V going to queue there because she can't even stand there and get exposed to COVID, you can actually have her watches served right at her door. Auntie Muni would have to change her business model today, and that is what you see as something that you find much easier from the youth because they are a lot more tech savvy, but they are a lot more accustomed to technology today than you find most of the old folks. You realize a lot more people, less people are going to employ people. People will be talking about the experience. But I don't think the experience is what you really need that much. You need some experience. But you actually need a lot more innovation. You need a lot more creativity. And you find that more in the youth. So people like you and me should start getting ready to be unemployed and rather be the ones employing the youth. So there's a need for a new orientation as far as the Ghanaian is concerned. There's a need for a reorientation as far as policy making is concerned. Because what can make us thrive is how quick we respond to science, technology, to the entire STEM, STEM education, and translate it into actual productivity. Governments are likely going to have the temptation to want to take consumer-driven interventions because of the social impact. But you only have so much a city as an economy as Ghana. That much, when you spend it today, should not be something that should largely be consumed. It should actually trigger something that can make this economy sustainable in the next 2-3 years. It is a difficult decision to make. How do we take advantage of it to now build industries that can help us win the war against COVID-19, but more importantly, serve other African countries who are yet to actually get their act together? Somebody has to lead the pack, and he who steps up would have a better chance of thriving in the future. And it has to be Ghana. We have missed the time, but we've not lost the time. We must find a way to get that back and get our teeming youth in production.
Mr. Asare, that's a lot of opportunities if you listen to Senyo break it down. But you know the taste for a lot of young people, we want to dress, wear heels, wear good shoes, and go to a certain space, thank you, go to a certain space called an office where you earn a lot of respect. I mean, how do we get people to move away from that kind of idea, that kind of thinking? Even though you're a graduate, you may have a master's, but this is something that you've got to do. How do we change that?
Well, I think it's been a bit difficult, over the years because of the structure of our education system. So once someone graduates from the university, the person just puts the CV in an envelope and then goes around looking for a job. I think it's time that we have a paradigm shift from that perspective, that look, it is no more the issue of, going out looking for jobs, waiting for job interviews and all that. That when our education system, what it's aimed at doing is producing people who are talented and innovative, who come and provide solutions. We have challenges as a developing country. We have challenges everywhere in our society, even in the neighborhood that you live. What can you do to be able to solve a problem? Maybe you don't have water. Are you waiting for government to put a pipe over there? What can you think through to be able to solve a need, to provide a need for your community? That is the way we need to start thinking. And we also need to sort of still look at the research area. We need to, some of these things, it is not rocket science, it's been done elsewhere. So can we learn from what others have done elsewhere to be able to solve this situation? There are some countries that have COVID, but haven't had any deaths. So what did they do differently that we are not able to do? So the youth that are coming out of schools need to start thinking of what new things can we do. The old, paradigm is going away. We have a new reality. The new reality is that we're going to have, a lot of this employment being digitized. People are asking, are robots going to replace human beings? It is going to happen. That we have a lot more employment being done mechanically or being done digitally. And what are the youth going to do? Are you going to sit there and hold your certificate and say you were a graduate? No, you need to start thinking. And necessity is the mother of innovation. And so this pandemic, I think if there's any lesson we've learned from it, is that it forces us to start thinking that what can we do to solve a problem? Until now, nobody had thought of how to develop a solar powered washing machine, but it's been done. So how can we help the youth to build on that? Nobody developed, thought of developing a ventilator or respirator, but it's been done in Ghana here. How can we help and scale it up? How can we commercialize this? In Senegal, for instance, we are hearing that they are developing 3D ventilators and providing cheap medicine to cure this COVID. Is this something we can learn from? How did they do it? So it is not rocket science. Our youth need to start thinking and researching, and we'll be able to put together something that is going to help us. As we've been talking about, we are not looking at the present, we are looking at the future. If the one who is able to see further is the one that is going to win, because we are not going to be in this situation forever. It is going to change. And when it changes, how prepared are we for the next thing that will happen? We don't know what is going to happen. It is so uncertain. And so we need to prepare ourselves for anything that will happen in the coming future. I think it is an opportunity for the youth. It's an opportunity for our education system to start thinking that, okay, how can we produce people who are innovators, who are critical thinkers, who can look at problems and provide solutions.
Okay.
That is what I think we need to start doing.
Okay, it's good we are here. Let's stay here for a while, because there are some of the institutions, Senyo and Evans, there are some of the institutions that are even struggling to move teaching and learning online and to even organize exams.
Look,
so
I would fire that headmaster. I should fire that VC. He has no space in our education today. It's as simple as that. You understand? We have a country to save. We have a country to nurture and make thrive. It's not time to carry dead weight. I mean, we have to realize that we are not in normal times. It's not time for prisoners. You understand? This country, and he used the right word, win. We have a need to win. There are lives at stake if we fail to win. It's no joke. It's not every day. It's not ABU, business as usual. I mean, it's not. So things must change. This is the time for you to put your best man in education, your best man in trade. This is the time to have your best man in science. It's a major paradigm shift. That either presents an opportunity for you to win or for you to be crushed. This world is not going to take any prisoners going forward. Where do you want to stand? This is the time you need to have your best man in agriculture, because that is our leverage. Like I've said, in this world, going forward, the only three things that are going to count: IT, food, and water. IT is going to drive everything. Today, I'm on my place, I do a little video before you see, it's everywhere. I don't need Joy FM to get that done. It doesn't cost me that much to get my adverts done. Life has changed. How are we turning this entire COVID thing into an opportunity to transform Ghana? Our solution won't come from petroleum. You've seen the way the petroleum prices have already crashed. Demand has crashed. Demand is going to be a major problem going forward. Petroleum may end up becoming what coal is today. So forget it. But people will have to eat. We can't rely on other people to feed us anymore. Can we turn that into a major commercial thing and feed Africa? All right? Health is not a major problem. We have people who have innovated, the solar, whatever it is, the hand washing thing. Stop celebrating them on TV. Start looking at how you can commercialize them and make sure that they start exporting whatever they are doing. All right, across West Africa, before other people start thinking, who will be ahead of the curve? That is the person who will only thrive going forward. And it ought to be our people. You know, we are too laid back and too reactive. You know, our way of thinking must change. And we are all victims of that, or possibly actors in it. But we owe it to the youth to change our orientation and give them a brighter future. Give them a real shot at tomorrow. While we are sitting here and our students are home, the people at Cherukpini are home, the students at Yendi are home, at Clever de Mete are home. Those in America are not just at home. They are getting tuition every day. Those in France, some of them are not at home, just there. IT is working. People are getting instructions online. There's online education going on. Do you think that in the next 1 year, the Ghanaian students will be the same as the European or the Western or the Chinese student? The world is not waiting for anybody. The world is not waiting for my children. They're not waiting for your children. The world is moving. So while everybody is shouting, and when you open CNN, all you see is Donald Trump and COVID-19, trust me, people are thinking and making sure they're positioning themselves for the future. So if you sit in Ghana and think the only thing that's happening in the world is COVID-19, you will have a generation who would have lost so much time and so much opportunity that the future of your own country will be in question. And like I say, we have a decision to make as a continent and as a people. Do we want to be the makers of or the takers of tomorrow? The West is preparing to make us their takers. They are the makers. I don't think that we should want to be takers. We need to be makers and thrive in this future that's before us.
Let me throw that to you, Evans. How do we've got people who are heading our institutions who don't even know what to do with the exams that's coming up. Some people have simply not even planned. And they are waiting for the president in one of the addresses to say that I have lifted the restrictions so they can go back to the classroom and do the usual. How do we change that? I mean, because you're telling me, the younger person, that these are the opportunities now. But the people who are teaching me don't get it.
Thank you so much. I have a little case, so I can relate to this whole situation of schools that are struggling to put online courses together. I have some kids at home. Then I ask them, so are you learning since you've been at home? They said no. They don't know what is happening. Then you are asking yourself, so all the time that these kids have been at home, is it time lost? Have they wasted that opportunity? Where else, elsewhere, people have moved beyond, the issue of classroom, sitting down and then doing lectures, that we have moved to a digital and e-learning space where people can sit here and obtain degrees without stepping their foot into a classroom. So that's the question we need to ask ourselves. It is an opportunity for those IT savvy entrepreneurs and the youth. I think that this provides a good opportunity for them to develop educational solutions. It is an opportunity, a big one at this stage for them, because a lot of especially the basic schools are struggling to even put online programs together. And how do you even do it? Zoom, how do you get a parent? I mean, there are some, let's admit it, there are some parents who don't know anything about IT and their kids are in this school. How do they get their kids to be able to connect to the lectures? It's a question that I sit here and I'm asking myself. I get notification from my school saying that there will be online or a trial at this time. So connect your child. And then I'm asking myself, okay, so if I'm a parent, I don't know how to operate a Zoom platform. How do I get my child to be able to connect to it? And so this is something we need to look at it from a holistic point of view. We need to have a national strategy towards developing an IT-oriented and e-learning, programs, models for different levels. And our people need to psych themselves up that, look, the whole brick and mortar school thing is going to change. If we don't change it ourselves, another pandemic or another situation is going to change it, and it's going to force us to be able to start thinking that e-learning is the way to go in the next generation.
Well, this whole conversation really is to provide insight and guidance to small businesses searching for ways to cope with the operational stress generated by the COVID-19. Senyo Hosi is here. Evans Asari is joining us via Zoom. He's a senior manager, KPMG. Senyo is the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, but he's also a great entrepreneur and policymaker, very passionate about, for instance, the conversation that we're having. So why don't you just give us a call? If you have any challenges you want to bounce it off them, please do so. 0302-211-69-102. 0302-211-69-102. You've got to be able to do that in about 5 minutes before we wrap up this conversation. So Senyo, is there a place, I don't know, where people are filing unemployment, they are getting some kind of monies? Is there anything that that young people and people who don't have jobs or whose businesses have collapsed can also do? Is there a Ghana homemade policy like that?
Ghana hasn't got what I would say reliable data on employment and unemployment. No government has shown the willingness to deal with that. In the US, in the West, there's proper data on employment and unemployment, because as much as possible, they try to formalize the entire economy. We have deliberately not formalized our economy. And everybody goes around banding all kinds of data. You run a survey and you ask somebody whether the person has earned an income in the last, I've forgotten what days they ask, whether the last 30 days or so. And they say, yes, I earned some income. You say he's employed. The guy went to carry some concrete just for 2-3 days. So he got something. You call that guy an employed person. All right? We should know it's not sustainable. How are we making sure everybody actually rolled into our pension system so you can actually see proper data on who is employed and who is not employed? how are you actually going to administer social intervention when you don't have visibility on data? That's why our interventions in this country don't follow the norms of economics. You make this intervention, you don't get a right response in the economy because there's actually inadequate data for it. There's no way government is easily going to be able to afford a major, social intervention. And governments must be careful. You don't have so much. It is time for all of us to know that we all have a certain responsibility to help carry each other, like we naturally do as families. But what you want to see policymakers do is making the right investments that can trigger economic sustainability for everybody. So, like I cited, somebody has a nice idea. What is the trade ministry going to do? How are you going to support that guy with business development, with skills, so that he can actually grow, so that he starts building businesses that export and employs people? Because the new type of employment you need is different. How are we going to get our education, our universities, to stop this their akapompo thing that they have been carrying, and start seeing that the akapompo is no more sitting? I don't know if you know what akapompo is. Academic pomposity, the gown that we wear. It's no more in the photo shoots that we have anymore. We're actually going to be able to build a whole new e-learning industry. Our universities should now become e-universities. And then you actually make money from there. People complain about the science student. They say, you see, we are refusing to think. If people can spend a lot more time rather getting educated without being physically present, because of the humanities and other programs that they do, one, choose the right programs that position us for that future. And after choosing that, there's space there. Let the science students come and use social distancing to run their labs. Because we need those science students to go, to be able to win in the STEM economy as we see the world evolving to be.
Let's go to the phone lines now. We've got Stephen and Shadrach, but I'll take Stephen first. Stephen is joining us from Nkoko. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Yes, sir. Let's hear you.
Yeah. Concerning the online Zooming or online education, right? I want to ask, how many students may have laptops in their home? How many people do have Android phones that can do that connection, that can support the connection that they wanted to learn from? You get it?
Okay.
So
the
problem of learning online is a little bit confused because even some of the areas that the student may have or may lead, the network situation over there sometimes don't work. So when you check, let's say, Vodafone or MTN, when you move to just a little step, you may not have that access.
Okay. All right.
So this connection and all this, and even if you tell a student that wait, maybe 2-3 hours, you will have online session. Maybe the parents may decide to move those children to the farm. You get it?
Okay. All right. I get you, Stephen. I get your point. Let's talk to Shadrach. I'll come to you for a reaction. Shadrach, good morning.
I remember last week, we're doing quizzes and other things. Some couldn't even log in because of poor network, and some also logged in. And it has been a major challenge facing society. That is why most of us are educating. That is why most of us are talking ill about this all model. And so I want the IT man to also come out with some solution that he may bring out.
Okay. All right.
If something good can be done about this, because it is becoming a major issue.
Okay, great. So Stephen and Shadrach have similar concerns. Ben is in Wale Wale. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, madam.
Yes, sir. Let's hear you.
Yeah. My problem is based on the e-learning.
Okay.
Our problem, what of our students who are in the local, how many of them can provide laptops or 100 phones that can get connect online or this? It's very pathetic. So why not we keep in a different way? I'm making on the television on that, but how possible or how is it easy? Let's say if I have about 4 or 5 students in my house, how can it be possible for one person to provide either laptop or 100 phones for this? So I'm sure if we put it there, it is better.
Okay, all right, Ben. Senor, all three callers have similar issues.
My friends, we are not in normal times for us to spend too much energy trying to find excuses. We are in a country where mobile penetration is actually higher than the entire population. We have about 40 million phones and we are 30 million people. You have 48% data penetration. How much time do we spend on Facebook? How much time do we spend on WhatsApp? We know how to WhatsApp, but you don't want to spend the energy and time to actually invest in knowing how to Zoom and learn, in knowing how to Skype and learn, in trying to e-learn. But you can spend fine time and use data following WhatsApp memes, which I can share some. You understand? And following Facebook and passing all kinds of comments, spending so much time on Instagram. Guys, it's time for us to prioritize rights. We should realize that this is not just a conversation about a certain time. It's about your own survival. If your life depends on it, will you choose WhatsApp, Facebook over your e-learning?
So if you don't have a laptop, because I heard all three mention laptop.
I'm telling you, you have 40 million phones in this country and you have 30 million human beings. And you're telling me about laptop. This is a computer I'm holding. All right? It's more powerful than a number of laptops. You understand? So if you can do WhatsApp, you can do Facebook. For God's sake, think.
Let me throw it to you, Evans. What are the alternatives? You've heard all the concerns.
I think the concerns are quite, common, and then it's quite instructive to know that even these are coming from the youth, and it's not coming from the aged who are sort of, someone would say that their time is fast. It is very, very sad that our youth are even complaining about laptops and then access to infrastructure to do e-learning. I think it is time for policy initiatives to be developed on e-learning. If we cannot provide a laptop for every child or every student or every people, I think we need to start creating hubs across the country, e-learning centers, so that people can access these centers and then use them for their educational purposes. We may not have the resources to be able to provide laptops for everyone. We may not have the resources to be able to provide broadband connectivity across the country. It is probably not possible resource-wise. We have a limitation. But how can we leverage what we have now to be able to extend education to the rural areas? And these are people coming, people are calling from Nkoko. This is not even the typical rural area. Nkoko is not a rural area. So when you go to our mother's villages somewhere where they don't even have electricity, how are they going to be able to connect to the new way of learning? So this is quite a very difficult challenge that we need to start thinking through. And it will take the youth to solve this. It will take the youth to provide a solution, something that is cost effective. It is happening elsewhere, and we think that we can do.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We will certainly come back to you. These are not ordinary times, so we need conversations like this to give people ideas as well. Thank you, Evans Asare, his senior manager, KPMG. Senor, always grateful. Thank you for joining us in studio.
Pleasure.
All right. And I'll keep telling the story of the facility that's been built. So I've got a feature that's coming up that we will all see. But for now, thank you for your time. Stay with us when we return. The second lady, Samira Bawumia, is seeking to publish the works of writers aged between 15 and 25. We've got details here on the show. Well, World Book Day was last Thursday. To mark the day, the Samira Empowerment and Humanitarian Project is organizing a writing contest dubbed the Samira Bawumia Literature Prize to give 30 young Ghanaian writers between the ages of 15 and 25 the opportunity to be published. This is the maiden edition of what Samira Bawumia and her outfit intend to make an annual program. Jessica Boyfield is the project research and media relations officer. She joins us via Zoom. She's not here, so I can safely take this off. All right, let's get in touch and let's have a conversation going on the back of this. Jessica, if you can hear me, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Great. Let's talk about this competition. You're calling for submission of projects.
Yes.
Okay, explain that.
Entries. So the Samira Bawumia Literature Prize, like you rightly said, is an initiative that's looking to publish 30 young Ghanaian writers. And this came about because as one of our core objectives, we like to improve literacy and cultivate a habit of reading and writing among the youth in Ghana. We focused primarily on reading, and so this year we decided what better way to promote reading than to promote writing. And we want our people to read more Ghanaian stories and to control their own narrative, and so then this is how the initiative came about.
Okay.
Now, there are 3 categories in this initiative, non-fiction, short fiction, and poetry. And so whoever's deciding to submit entries, you just need to choose one of these categories and put in 1 entry. And your submission should be no more than 3,000 words.
Okay.
So basically that's the whole idea of it. Let's promote writers, let's support them, let's give them a launch pad to share their art with the world.
Okay, and it's between 15 and 25. It's a great time because every young person is at home, unless you have work to wake up to. But how many of the entries have you received so far? How many are you hoping that you'd collect in the end?
Well, we're hoping that we can get thousands of entries because this is a nationwide initiative. So then from across the country, we're hoping we get thousands and thousands of them. Currently, right now, as we speak, we have about 150 entries that have come in so far. So they're coming in really quickly. And we're pretty excited to see that people are excited to join this and to be a part of this initiative.
All right, so explain how somebody can participate.
Okay, so you just log into sbawumia.org, and that's SBAWUMIA.org. And once you go on there, you see a pop-up, and you just click on Learn More, and it takes you to the contest website. And you just have to read through. You read everything in there. Make sure you read the rules of entry, because that's very critical, because if you miss out one part of it, you might be disqualified. So you just scroll through the website, and when you get to the very end, you're going to see a form that will ask you for your name, for you to upload a national ID. That's just for us to verify that you're within the age range and that you're Ghanaian living in Ghana. And then you get to choose which category you want, and then you upload your entry. It's pretty simple, straightforward, no frills.
What are the timelines? What's going to happen after the deadline?
So the deadline is the 8th of May. And once 12 midnight, 8th of May hits, we close the submissions. And what happens is that the judges that we have, and we have 4 incredible judges who are authors in their own right, authors and editors in their own right, these judges will have the collated entries, right, that have come through, and they will sit down and read through each and every one of it. They're going to give them the full attention, and then they will grade them. Then we have all of the entries and the grades allocated, and then we cut out the top 30.
Okay.
Basically, it's going to be a period, they're going to use a period of about a month to assess the work based on the numbers that come in. And once that's done, then we announce the shortlisted applicants.
Okay, and what's at stake? What's the best writer getting?
So the best writer in each category, so that's just the top 1, and each category gets a cash prize of 5,000 Ghana cedis, a brand new laptop, and then you get published in the winner's anthology. So we're putting together a book with the 30 best stories and poems, and this is going to get published and get stocked in bookstores around the country. So this is what the top 1 across categories get. But if you're between the 2nd and 10th in each category, you're not going to be left out. You're going to get 2,000 Ghana cedis, and then you're going to get published as well.
Okay.
So those are the prizes at stake.
Fantastic. Jessica, just leave us with the website again before we wrap up this conversation.
The website is sbawumia.org, SBAWUMIA.org.
Okay. Really excited because we need something like this to keep us company in this whole COVID-19 era. Jessica, thank you very much for telling us about this competition. Stay with us. We've got
Thank you so much for me.
Okay, great. We've got some show business before we wrap up the show. Stay with us.
Good morning, my name is Kadi and this is Showbiz right here on the AM show. Now, ever since the break of coronavirus in the country, there has been advice on importance of wearing the face mask from the World Health Organization and health experts. Now, following this, there have been different designs of face masks introduced to the market by tailors and designers, apart from the ones used by health practitioners. Now, Bella Couture happens to be one of the designers who have had such products on the market. Thankfully, CEO of the company, Bennett Bracco Asiama, joins us in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Karim.
How are you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm okay.
Great.
Okay, so we are in the coronavirus era, unfortunately. Now, how has it affected your business?
So it affected us in a very bad way because of the fact that initially, during the very first lockdown, we were not allowed to come and work because of the fact that we're not supposed to go out and all of that. So it really affected us. But it's been quite good after we were released from the lockdown because of the fact that we've started creating the PPE, that's the face mask. So gradually, like, we're getting there.
Okay, now what strategy? So right now you're using working and sewing of the PPE to stay in business because people are not purchasing clothes and other stuff. Now, what celebrities have you worked with so far?
I've worked with quite a number. I've done Obrafour, I've done Ochame Kwame, I've done Obibini, I've done Kwabwa, I've done Sack, I've done Stoneboy, I've done the names, there are a lot.
Yeah.
Abeku Santana.
Have you ever had any difficulty working with any of these celebrities?
Not really, yes. I mean, it hasn't been that stressful, yes, because they apparently love everything I do and the fact that it looks good on them. So most of the times, I mean, we flow. The vibe is just there, so we just flow.
Okay, so now you're making face masks, and by the World Health Organization, there's supposed to be a lining in the face mask, and do you use that?
Yes, so the dimensions is supposed to be 10 inches wide and 6 inches, 10 inches long and 6 inches wide. And it has to be, if you're not able to get the filter, you're supposed to have 2 layers, or you're supposed to use a soft stiff and then you line it so that you can get the, what the filter is supposed to do. When you line it with a cotton lining, it can equally do the same.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
so which one do you use for yours?
So I use the cotton lining.
Okay.
To help with the breathing.
Okay.
Yes.
So when people purchase, do you teach them how to use the mask?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
And then you teach them how to dispose of the mask, how to wash it?
Yes, so the good thing about our mask is it's not disposable. It's reusable. Yeah. You can wash it. So what you're supposed to do is, as soon as you purchase it, it's either you wash it or you use the sanitizer before wearing it, and after you wash it with a little alcohol in the water, and that's it. You're good to go. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, we have Bella Couture with us in the studio, and he's just teaching us how to use the reusable mask and how to dispose it off and how to wash it. And that's all we have for Showbiz for this morning. My name is Kadi Asamoah Mamavi.
Okay, Kadi, can I borrow him for Friday? Can you make it, like, how long does it take for you to make the mask?
So if we are not supposed to do the embroidery on it, because sometimes we customize it either with the company logo or the
so no logo,
name. So no logo, it can be done in 20-30 minutes.
Okay.
I brought one for Kadi so we
think
can
about it.
Have a look at it.
Maybe he can make one for us live on the show on Friday.
Too, so.
Good for you, Kadi. So it's got her name on it? Okay. It's a wrap. Thank you for watching the